Well, welcome back. As we think about the city-state of Florence, I went a little bit longer on the first video, so this one will be significantly shorter. Make sure, though, that you are able to be plugged in, and then we'll be good for today. We'll come back on Wednesday. We'll finish up Florence, and then we'll move to Milan. Now, it's interesting when we think about Italy. Obviously, it's a pretty good chunk of land, basically on this similar, like we talked about it in September, latitude as California, but similar to even this area. It's interesting when you think about cities around here. Each city has its own personality, has its own way of doing things, kind of how it's known. And Italy is going to be no different. So whereas we've seen Venice being a city of trade, of commerce, people coming in and out, and fairly peaceful, we're going to see Florence being very, very different. Now, I think that you guys are aware as we think about the title of the city state, Florence. Many of you guys are in Spanish right now, Flor, and I know that you're probably judging my accent there or lack of a R roll, but is for flowers. So this is the city of flowers, but it's going to be anything but a good smelling flower at this point. There's a big conflict that's going to be happening between the emperors of Italy and the Pope. We're going to see this now being a big deal as we think about this tension. There's going to be two groups, two opposing sides that are going to largely stake their claim. They're going to be supportive of their side, their person, as we think about who side you might have been on. It's interesting to realize how quickly sides will be divided, sometimes even within families, but certainly within areas of Florence. On one side, you're going to see the Guelphs supporting the Pope. On the other side, you're going to see a group called the Ghibellines supporting the emperor. And we're going to see these two sides clashing with great frequency. There's not a whole lot of opportunity for them to find common ground or this peace that is so elusive. There's going to be constant fighting. In fact, that's going to spill out even into the streets. The tension is not going to only be over this specific point, even down to conflict between the elites and the commoners. Hopefully, this is ringing some bells for you, saying, wait a second, this sounds a lot like what happened at the beginning of Justinian's reign there in the Nika revolt. However, this is going to be a little bit different, obviously, because there's going to be much bigger conflict going on. Like I said, fighting is going to spill out into the streets, and we're going to see people dying over this tension. Some people that are going to be adamantly for the Pope, and the other adamantly for the Emperor. But at the end of the day, they're fighting for their side. I don't know if you guys spent a long time talking about this last year, if you were in the States in eighth grade, talking about the Civil War, and so often that clash between the two, the North and the South. It sounds similar to this. Again, when they were fighting for what they believed to be the correct side, that's going to spill over onto the battlefield, or in this case, the streets, and we're going to see people fighting. I think this image is pretty striking. This is kind of demonstrating that several things that are going to be kind of notable. First of all, it's right out in front of you, a couple horses that look like they didn't make it, swords that are clashing, even a flag there on the left. But there's some things up in the top. It's not clear what the guy on the right is doing. It almost looks like he's announcing or cheering on or giving direction. I don't know exactly. And then to think about a person being there, looks to be a priest praying in the midst of people killing each other. That's pretty dramatic, thinking about a man of the cloth taking that opportunity to pray. And then on the far left, it's almost like that's intro music or a background soundtrack, who knows. But either way, we're going to see this street fighting between the Guelphs and the Ghibellines being a big deal between the two different sides of Florence. Well, when we come back on Wednesday, we'll talk a little bit more about how things are going to persist, what that's going to look like, this ongoing kind of reality for Florence, and what their government will be a little bit more in detail come Wednesday. Make sure you check out Schoology for homework, even in the middle part of the week, and I'll see you guys on Wednesday. Take care.